Let this be a reminder to you all that this organization will not tolerate failure.
The side of the federal building has been blown off, Jesse.
They believe they were part of a CIA project called MK Ultra.
Just like a segment of society that is not living in reality.
In a certain sense, we're kind of a little bit more Israel's vassal state.
There are police chiefs facilitating prostitution networks.
Do you understand? It's all in your head. It's your move.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Underclass Podcast with Austin Picard. I am joined this morning by the great William Ramsey of William Ramsey Investigates. It looks like we've had some issues on Twitter this morning, right? Because it seems like it's been down basically all day. But I just now tried to get it back up and online with at least the Twitter links that I can control on my end here. And also, let me try and get my Rumble back online. Looks like it's also, there's an error there. So great. Of course, we're dealing with working through the kinks, technical difficulties, but I'm not at all surprised. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Usually, Jose and I have been doing the morning dump, right? The morning show that we kind of stream. Typically, we've been doing it 5 to 7 days a week, which has been, at first, I was concerned there wouldn't be enough to talk about, but that was that's not at all proven out to be the case. But anyway, so first of all, I just want to reintroduce William to anyone who is yet to, of course, kind of, I don't know where you've been if you're kind of consuming my content and have not yet been introduced to William, but I believe him to be one of the most extraordinary, valuable resources out there right now, especially considering kind of this environment of distrust that's very much been cultivated on as we're witnessing the dying gasp of the mainstream media. People like you have really picked up the torch and just ran with it. And in my mind are kind of, you're engaging in some of the most valuable investigative journalism, around at this moment. So introduce everybody to your work. I know you've done 5 films and 5 books as well, right? Go ahead, William.
Yeah, thanks for the nice introduction. I appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on, and for all the shows we've done. We've done 4 on Mockingbird. We did one that was really well listened to and well received on my channel about the Solar Temple, which a lot of people don't know about. But I've done 5 books, 5 documentaries, over 1,300 episodes. I was formerly a guest for 8 years until I kind of started my own kind of YouTube channel. Then got kicked off of YouTube. I have a podcast. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the dying gasp of the mainstream media has no credibility. I don't know anybody intelligent who even watches TV. It's almost a really hyper dystopian world because nobody intelligent, I know, follows the TV. And then people know it's just constant bombarding of the most vicious propaganda. And then there's all these other people you're walking around the invasion of the body snatchers who are repeating all this stuff, and you're just like, wow, you're gone. So this theme of mind control, actually what you kind of talked about in the intro, or I think pertains to the subject matter of what I want to talk to you about, which is this weird book. But it's not just some kind of weird book that came out in 1951 in the past, because the past is present. We were talking in the pre-show about some of these characters that I didn't even tie into this presentation, but the characters that are around today, we know of, Mangione and Ruth, come from Oahu, not just the state of Hawaii, but the specific island that Mark Chapman, who's very much tied to this strange book, is attached to. And these guys have sketchy background. Mangione goes into the hospital and comes out a new person. And we were talking these other names that you mentioned, the pre-show. I never thought about Adam Lanza or Tsarnaev. If they go into a hospital and they come out, and it ties into exactly the same thing of Sirhan. We know he disappeared for 6 weeks. Where was he?
Oh my God. Sirhan's one of the craziest stories that I've ever, exposed myself to. When I did the RFK assassination episode, I wasn't at all prepared to kind of wander into the environment of the Howard Hughes, sort of what was the name of the individual who was very much Mayhew. I believe Robert Mayhew was.
Except, I suppose the X. Whenever they
Yeah.
say X at CIA or FBI, you have to
Exactly.
really question it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. As if we haven't seen that in the recent past, as far as the oversaturation in the alternative media landscape we just discussed to a large extent on Friday. But yeah, honestly, William, because really you reintroduced me to this book in a way that I had never even imagined, kind of psychologically approaching it in this way. But it makes all the sense in the world now, rereading through. And my God, like it's uncanny, the level of the terminology, the repetitive terminology. It is very much like there's a layered subplot taking place in your subconscious mind, whether you're aware of it or not. And to imagine this book being taught to the youth in this way, especially considering the very strange themes that consistently reappear, resurface throughout the plot. Very strange plot to begin with. But yeah, it reminded me of like Lolita in a way, which is why I kind of keep my distance from. I never watched Lolita. It's the only Kubrick film I've never watched, and I probably should, because as much as I love Eyes Wide Shut and all the rest of his films, I need to watch it. It's just the romanticization of that sort of dynamic. It's almost like in the vein of Nambla, right? It's like this justification of some kind in a strange way. It's like introducing this concept of acceptance almost in as far as this lifestyle is concerned of abuse, really, this pattern. But
Ties in with this book too. Strange that they came out like 3 years apart or something like that after Kinsey's work comes out in 48. Like something's going on. So you can't see this book in the pattern of just like this independent event. It's part of this, in my opinion, this kind of culture creation. And I'm glad you kind of keyed into some of the stuff that this book had, because in my first reading when I was a teen, I just thought it was a dumb book about some disaffected guy. But now at my age and my knowledge of mind control and these MK Ultra programs and these assassins and all this stuff, I'm like, this is really profound. They put the narrative is immaterial. That as the story is almost fake. It's like what's in there and these psychological states and stuff's very, very sophisticated in my opinion. And I think that is why this kind of keyed into me, because the stuff that I got into this book really started a dispute online. I was doing a show for Billy Ray Valentine and his new channel, and I called it the D-Hypno Program. And so I was talking to somebody on Twitter, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Chapman and the Catcher in the Rye, they're just a coincidence." And I was like, that's not my memory of it at all. It's not a coincidence that he was really involved in this book, had a profound influence on his thinking. And sure enough, I did a show on that back in April of 2024. And I think I proved, like on other research, it's not me, but other books, Fenton Bresler's book about the killing of Lenin that took place in December 1980, that there was a recent obsession of Chapman with this book, and he carried it around. And he actually became the central character of the book, who is, for people who don't know, it's Holden Caulfield. So he actually morphed into this fictional character. So something very profound happened in a very profound death. Like John Lennon was obviously a cultural phenomenon of all time. Yeah.
Yep.
So my studies started really in 2024. And then I reread the book for another show I did with Walter Bosley and Todd Wood. And then it's like, wow, now that I'm reading this, like the terminology in here is crazy. Like he repeats, I'm a madman. I'm a sex maniac. He has almost every psychological malady of anybody on earth. So you have this kind of public thing of like Holden Caulfield's this honorable, disaffected anti-hero, but there's nothing redeemable about him. There isn't anything about him that's good. He hates people. He's like he doesn't follow his parents' things, and there's an untoward attraction. The whole story is of him going home to meet his younger 10-year-old sister. So you see this kind of pet, and there's like hints of pedophilia. All the kind of pedophilia ideas are there. So it ties into this kind of cultural move of Lolita and Kinsey. There's no question about it.
Absolutely. And I felt like the way in which he kind of described the dynamic between him and his younger sister, very much like it kind of it almost outlined her character as far more mature than you would imagine, and that felt like some sort of grooming process in a way for the audience, just for the reader, to kind of embrace this character in this really immoral way, in a way, I mean, I understand, I guess.
That's the common statement of these pedophiles when they rape the kids is they're old enough to digest it. There's no harm and they can make adult decisions. That's what they think. And so it's reflected in this book. She's actually more mature than Holden, who's supposed to be 16. She can quote Robert Burns. What kid knows like Burns quotes of stuff? And she's telling him what to do. Like, oh, you're so bad. Why are you quitting school? Did you quit school again? And it's all very strange. And they're going to travel off together like adults. And she's packing her bag. Like what 10-year-old kid does that? Like there's things that, and it all takes place in her bedroom. So there's this kind of hint there. They're on the bed. They're wrestling. He's touching her. It's really like you watch it. Like, I mean, you read that stuff and it goes on for a long period of time. Like it's not like a 1-page thing where he's talking to Phoebe. It absorbs him for like 10 or 12 pages of the entire book. They dance together. So it's like, and it's that's the subtlety of this book is like, this guy's supposed to be 32 when he wrote it, Salinger. And how does he know all these sophisticated kind of literary tricks and things that are in this book? It's not like a pure narrative. Even when he's talking to Phoebe or having this kind of thing where he comes back out of like Pensy, which is supposedly in Pennsylvania, back to Central Park, like literally he goes back to Manhattan. When he's with her, he's drifting off into space and weird things are happening with this whole conversation where he's schizo, like he's not well. And it starts like I've starting to see more layers of the book, but it starts with him talking about how he ended up in a mental institution. It ends in chapter 26 with him in an institution. So he's sick.
That is amazing. I know.
And this book is promoted to all the teens all over the United States. 65 million copies of this book have been sold. So this isn't some kind of like rarefied, literary thing that nobody reads. This is popularized. It's been popularized. It's not that great of a book.
Yeah. It seems as if this were potentially by design, especially the timing of it all is so perfect in regard to the mind war, right? The very clandestine, psychological approach of sort of, in my mind, this is the blueprint for any sort of vulnerable mind, such as, especially if they've been groomed to embrace such a, as they say, what was it? The Bible of teenage angst, they claimed, right? It's like, what is that even as far as a phrase to describe the book? What a strange way to do so, but I mean, just Holden Caulfield alone, like his entire, as far as just his character, it very much seemed as if he's, I mean, obviously he has this weird relationship with Stradlater or whatever, right? That character that he's like jealous of because of this relationship dynamic with a female that he's attracted to. Isn't that what
Jane
happened?
Gallagher or whatever I think her name was. Yeah.
He's
an incel. Like I said, he's got everything. He's a pyromaniac, incel. He's a sex maniac who like doesn't have any. He has a prostitute right in his room in the kind of optimal situation. And he doesn't finalize the act
Right.
He's, it's all, and he's interested in sex. He talks to this guy, Luce, who's an interesting name. You'll see all these interesting names in here.
Oh,
And I do
man.
think it's a tie-in to the Luce
That-
family.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So
At the
instantly-
Wicker Bar. Why is he at the Wicker Bar? So the Wicker Man, the sacrifice. There's very dark elements in this book, people. I'm telling
that's
you,
David
like this,
Berkowitz, right?
Yeah.
When he's quoting in the
the Wicker
and
Man.
I don't even
right?
think that. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy to
Yeah,
me.
so the Wicker Bar, but the other thing, he starts off, he's on a hilltop ruminating to himself. He's totally self-absorbed.
Mhm.
And it's so cold, he's on the hill. It's as cold as a witch's teat. So he's literally conceptualizing himself on a cold witch's breast. Like, that's
Wow.
weird. Like, that's how it starts. I'm
cult.
not making this up.
That seems like a cult in nature. And
It is.
honestly,
There is an element of the occult. They go in, he goes down the stairs into the Museum of Natural Sciences, into like a mausoleum for Egyptian mummies.
Oh my god!
Like, come on, like that's what Joe Atwell, who was in this movie, Clockwork Shining. He wrote two things.
He was
One
in
about
The Shining, or
it. With this
Clockwork
book is you'll
one.
see this in there. That's in The Shining too, which has themes that overlap with this.
Wendy
this book,
was
yeah.
reading The Catcher in the Rye,
right next to Danny, who's split brained and talking to himself. And
Yeah, he's got.
it's
The
all
Shining.
about craziness. That whole book. And like,
Absolutely.
the interesting is there's an overlap between Danny and Holden Caulfield where you have a shine. The call is a kind of like when you're born. Some people are born with like part of the placenta over their head, and that's seen as a sign of like divinity or inspiration. And so it's
Wow.
not a mistake. Holden is called Holden Caulfield, which is a tie-in. You'll see these complex overlaps and tie-ins between the catcher and the field and the rye fields, but they're garbled. So Holden garbles the Burns poem. He doesn't understand it like anything else. He doesn't understand. So you're seeing somebody who's literally schizophrenic, where their interpretation of the world is messed up. Like a lot of these assassins, something happens to them where the schismogenesis takes place. Like they've been, like they're not like Mangione is a perfect example. This isn't like a low functioning guy. Mangione was the highest functioning person imaginable. Like he was the head of his class at a very high powered private school who was in Palo Alto, like working like somebody like a Vance type character, like working at a high level, and all of a sudden he goes batshit lunacy,
Right.
My point is like this schizophrenic element is definitely there, and it's in Holden Caulfield. So this call and this gift is something that's a theme that's intentionally placed and overlapped. And you see this, it's way too complex. It's very sophisticated how they laid out all this catcher notion and the title and the Burns thing, which is really, I think the Burns poem is something about something in the rye, which she quotes, like which Phoebe quotes. But it's like, I may think where this is. It's if a body catch a potty coming through the rye. So the catcher in the rye isn't stated in that poem. So you see that kind of distraction. The other thing about Holden too, and you'll see this in some of the slides, is he doesn't know where the ducks go. So he doesn't understand where the ducks are going when it gets cold. He doesn't understand the concept as a 16-year-old that they fly south. So it's just another indicator of his like inability to notice stuff.
Yeah, he's almost on the spectrum in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, which it is interesting as far as like the psychological grooming aspect of these individuals who very much, like you mentioned, Mangione, how he was just sitting there waiting to be apprehended, very much like James Holmes, who was described as being in this really a hypnotic trance whenever they walked up to him and arrested him. He was like described as being in some sort of trance. And
that's
also
Chapman was sitting there at the Dakota reading Catcher in the Rye.
Wow. That is the most ridiculous thing. And you combine that with just like, also you mentioned Ryan Routh and just the fact that their movements, right? Very Oswaldian, very right, as far as like being able to travel to all these different countries, right? Especially considering like Oswald is the best example for like the fake defector program and you know, traveling to these blacklisted countries, which you wouldn't have been able to gain access to without some sort of intelligence, you know, connection. Yeah, it very much, it reminds me of Jack Ruby as well. Remember in Chaos recently when, which by the way, it's in the media now. I haven't watched it yet. The Netflix documentary. I read the book a while back, but I just I'm very skeptical anytime Netflix ever takes on.
It's not very good. They really almost half the thing is just a basic retread of all the stuff we know about the Manson thing. Like they didn't get into any juicy details until the very end. There's some speculation, but it's really, for me, it was a real disappointment. It was kind of a dud. Like I already know all the stuff. Like let's get in. They missed a lot of stuff about how the Haight-Ashbury Clinic was studying methamphetamine and its effect on animals and making them go crazy. And then they mention like they're you know, taking meth before they go and kill everybody at Cielo Drive. It's like, you guys should know all this. Come on. Yeah. And they don't have a lot of good information on Jolly West either. And
right.
They could have that's the best part. That's the most interesting part.
It is
of that book, the Chaos book, is the speculation, the overlap between these public events and then this whole MK Ultra stuff. That's what makes it, you know. But they didn't. His
parole officers, you know, him violating his parole and just being reassigned. Like, when does this happen? You know, have you ever heard the Danny Trejo story of him?
We can pull it up right now. Danny Trejo says he was hypnotized by Manson in jail before he got out in 1967. So he knew all this stuff. And they didn't even go, that's another downfall of this like documentary. They didn't go into the details about his knowledge of Scientology, of Manson's knowledge. That's what they learn in Scientology, how to manipulate people. Exactly. You know, it's like, dude.
And when he was living up there on Cole Street, that's where he was directly influenced by the chapter of the Process Church there on Cole Street. It's just so nuts to me.
Yeah,
and
they missed a lot of stuff. Like I hope they got paid real well or whatever. That was, I mean, I like Tom. I actually interviewed O'Neill when the book came out because I realized that it was an important piece of research, and I still think that's the case in 2019 before he went on Rogan. But that book is like sold so many copies now. A lot of kind of more mainstream people, like Candace Owens, loves like Chaos. But anyway, it does kind of tie into this stuff, this kind of creation of these crazy. I mean, how like Manson, like he got all those people to do this crazy stuff. You see, these are like they went through a very severe personality change, and they actually point this out in the documentary that's on Netflix. Is that these are formerly kind of semi-normal people, at least maybe Tex Watson. Some aren't. But then when they get out of they change this personality, they do the murders, then they get away from Manson, they all become like born-again Christians. They're all like have Christian stuff. So it's clearly Manson's influence on them, to me, is like, and I think that would have been a much more interesting documentary if they went in detail about the application of LSD.
No doubt.
There's information out there that I mean, I don't think they put this in the documentary either, is that Jolly was very much like one of the MK guys studying the effects of LSD. He had studied the hippies, LSD, his buddies, people he was around knew about meth. So all this stuff ties into the Manson events.
And I forget the intelligence agent that was providing the orange sunshine acid at the time. But he was directly, I'm trying to remember his name, but he's the one who provided the Altamont Festival, right? Where it popped out, everybody got violent, and the Hells Angels were running security, and it was like it was all tied back to the same individual who supplied everyone at that time. Basically,
Oswald Mosley, or something like that. Who was like a big time like elite. Eastern elite type character too.
Absolutely.
Like one of those types,
And I didn't know that there's a neighboring property to Spawn Ranch called Krupp Ranch, and it's old paperclip Nazi money. I had no idea that this was a factor apparently Alexander Butterfield and Alexander Haig have direct connections to this, and it was a neighboring property, again, to Spawn Ranch, and RKO Pictures. Howard Hughes had of course a longstanding connection to Spawn Ranch, and so I found it interesting. Alex Constantine, in his archives, there's an article about a potential alternative motive for the killing of Sharon Tate. And basically it was that an MDA deal had gone wrong, and they had been basically screwed out of a shitload of money as well. And so Mama Cass Elliott she lived on Cielo Drive. They were all hanging out at the Tate residence for a while, and Mama Cass's place. And I think this directly ties into the Laurel Canyon scene, obviously. As far as
it's one canyon over. I mean,
Yeah,
I think that's
exactly.
Benedict Canyon, and then one canyon over is Laurel, so it's not that
Wow,
far.
it's fascinating, man. But anyway, I do think that there's potential, additional, because there's a tie-in with Mama Cass's autopsy. The doctor that ruled her autopsy, basically, he was far overqualified to have made the determination that he did, which many people have, experts in the field, have claimed that this should not have happened. She allegedly choked on a ham sandwich while lying on her back, like with no drugs in her system. This guy also was provided the autopsy for one of the key Gladio operatives, which I found very interesting. But when you pull that up, it seems to point out that it looks like what was his name? Damn it, you'll know it instantly. Roberto Calvi. That was the individual.
That's the guy involved in the Vatican Bank.
Yeah, exactly. And he was involved in Gladio and these stay behind networks as well. God's banker, they called him, right? The Vatican Bank. But yeah, anyway, it turns out that Dr. Keith Simpson, he also ruled on his autopsy.
On Calvi's?
Yeah. Very high
Once you've been
profile.
around as long as I have, you realize all these medical examiners are corrupt as the day is long. They're all corrupt. It's like Chinatown. Go watch Chinatown
Absolutely.
again.
Oh,
The
that
guy's
Polanski
totally
movie,
corrupt.
it's such a good movie, man.
Yeah,
like,
it's-
as much as Polanski's probably a psychopath, that you know what I mean. I still think it is an amazing film.
The writing is extraordinary. Like, it's brilliant. It's so well constructed. I think the guy did win Academy Award for writing that the screenplay for that, and it's off the
Probably
charts.
should have. I
It's
thought it was
clever.
amazing.
It's really a smiley face killing film. Like, it's crazy. Like, the guy's literally drowned somewhere else and then dumped in the seawater.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
it's dark. I mean, that's the kind of knowledge that Polanski knows. He knows he's very well.
Oh yeah.
He's probably one of the highest initiates out there. He's
I would think so.
very dark character.
That's what all those whistleblowers at the LAPD were claiming, that they witnessed that film, that homemade film of Sharon Tate being essentially gang raped. And yeah, very strange.
That comes from multiple sources
Yeah.
that they were.
And they said that
filming
Roman was
crazy
filming
stuff.
it,
Yeah.
which is just nuts to me. But anyway, what do you want to take?
Let's
this
play The
morning?
Catcher in the Rye that's loaded up for the video, and that'll just kind of see the common culture. Like, this is a book that's pervaded our common culture in a lot of different ways: films, references, and assassins.
Do you have the ability to show it, or do you want?
Yeah,
me
you
to
have
do
to bring it up into the.
Okay, kids, let's take our seats. There has been a change in school policy, and so I'm assigning you all a book to read.
Ah, book? God, I hate those.
Now, kids, this book is very controversial and has just been taken off the banned books list.
Oh, really? Sweet.
It's called Catcher in the Rye, and it has some very risque parts
All right.
and strong, vulgar language.
Awesome, dude.
And in fact, many schools across the country still ban this book because it's thought to be so inappropriate.
Oh, man, I can't wait.
Tonight, I want you to read chapters 1 through 5, and tomorrow we'll discuss the...
No, come on. Let's read it now. Mr. Garrison, didn't the guy who shot John Lennon say it was because of this book?
Yes, apparently John Lennon's killer said he was inspired by Catcher in the Rye, but he was just a kook.
Whoa, you're telling us this book is filthy, inappropriate, and made a guy shoot the king of hippies? Can we please read this right now?
You will read it at home, and you will all be mature about its adult themes and language.
That is too funny.
I think
man.
there's a whole episode on there, the whole thing. So if you bring up the slides, we can just kind of go through the slides. I got a lot of video too, but this is the whole thing. It's like red. There's this theme of red. You saw the cover of what they had in South Park, which is the carousel where it takes place in Central Park, right? So the carousel in Central Park is where this kind of final meeting between Holden and his sister Phoebe, where he keeps saying, she kills me. He's really happy, but it's very strange. Anyway, so this red, I think, like, is this common theme in this book. So that's the other title right there, is that novel. But this is the other thing. He wears this kind of hat. He wears this human hunting hat. This is the kind of changed personality theme about this book, is that he puts this on to hunt humans. He literally states that in the book. Like, it's like, this is what I put on. Where you see this repetitive language, we'll see what these other, what I believe to be programmed killers, repetitive language. You'll see this through the whole book. We could reread the whole book. That'd be a whole episode. But this is one specific thing. I wear a people shooting hat. I shoot people with this hat. See how that they kind of just inverts it. This is literally quotes from the book. I'm not kidding. So, also, like, at the very beginning, he has these all repetitive phrases. You will. Like, it's crazy.
Wow.
Like, this is like,
that is Sirhan, man.
Yeah.
The girl.
Exactly.
The girl. Oh my God.
It's in these slides. So he's a chain smoker. So he's chain smoking. And then there's the ducks, right? So I talked about the ducks. He doesn't know where the ducks go. So he's walking around Manhattan with a human hunting hat, talking about how he depersonalizes everybody. Everything's phony. So it's almost like it's cool at the first level, like, oh, he thinks everybody's lying, which they're all superficial in this book to a certain extent.
Wow.
But he's also depersonalizing the other people, They're all fake. They're not real. They're full of crooks and smokers. There's also this theme of transformation that starts in this book. He's grown 6 inches in the last year. He's skinny. It's all the stuff. There's also this concept that's in cults of this. It's all life is a game.
Transformation.
Yeah, transformation and the gamesmanship of reality. So reality, there's more. It's more of a game. You'll see this in the Finders too, where they call the game caller and the shot caller.
The game caller. Oh my God.
But they have this thing. These are the intro things that Salinger or whoever helped him write this book or whatever's going on.
Yeah,
and
this had to have been an amalgam.
We could talk about Salinger because this is his like great American novel. He had one kind of minor success maybe after this Franny and Zoe, but that's it. Like, he didn't follow up with another masterpiece. So anyway, this isn't a masterpiece. This is this is culture creation.
Absolutely, man. This is legitimately the intersection of culture creation, social engineering.
MK Ultra, all the studies they were doing. So before the poisoner in chief, right, Gottlieb took over MK Ultra after it was announced by Dulles in 1953, right? There was these other programs that were headed by a guy named Morse Allen, where they were studying this kind of stuff. Can we make a fake assassin? And there were Project Artichoke and Bluebird. So these are like happening right around this book gets published. And a lot of this stuff comes out of, we can do the post-Nazi stuff. There's a lot of these German doctors knew a lot of this stuff before it even got systematized into the U.S. And it really goes back to the 19th century. Mesmer, that's where the word mesmerism comes from, is a guy named Mesmer who used to hypnotize people. There's a really good book called The History of Hypnotism, which goes back a couple hundred years. But this book happens after, it's a post-war book. So all these guys who came back from, including Salinger, came back from the war, are like paranoid about communism. The Manchurian Candidate concept is coming out in the 50s. And then this book comes out. So it's not coming out in some kind of vacuum. 65 million copies of Catcher in the Rye have been sold worldwide. Incredible. Like, off the charts. This is what Salinger looked like. And we know from, like, this is literal fact that when he was 30 or 32, he was in a relationship with a 14-year-old. Like, so this is where his real life is reflected in this book when it's published. and we, Lolita and all this other stuff ties
Right.
into it. He according to her, you can see her online talk about this. Like he has this kind of relationship like that apes Holden's relationship to Phoebe, and he did consummate she says they consummated the relationship when she was legal. That's what she says. But that's a whole nother video. It's kind of a side thing. Here he is he was involved in World War II. So he was involved in one of the landings, D-Day, and he spoke fluent French and German. So he was an intel asset, CIC. I don't know if he knew Kissinger, but he's overlapping with like I said, a lot of these people who are in the war, people who came back and got involved in all this mind control stuff. Esther Brooks who did a lot of the malfeasance stuff at McGill University in Canada, the sleep rooms and all that stuff. He wrote a couple books on Germany. So he was there too with all these guys. So it kind of makes sense if the intelligent people would have known some of these other guys are around in the system, like Kissinger and all these other guys.
Right.
And it's kind of like the Cold War. A lot of these guys were fused together in World War II. So a lot of the guys who ended up at the CIA all have some kind of World War II background. Casey, Dulles, all these guys. So that's how they were kind of bound together in war.
Man.
You'll see this similar theme. This is Mark David Chapman. He's pointing at his brain. He's going to blow his head off. And then here is Hinckley, same kind of posture.
Wow. Man.
And we'll see this reflected by another character in a movie that ties into all this, Taxi Driver, whose main character is Travis Bickle. And that's who Hinckley identified with. But it's more than identity. These killers fuse their mental minds into fictional characters. And we'll see that. Let me see if I can bring up this other one.
Man.
So the video file. It gets pretty disturbing. Let me see if I can bring up.
Salinger was allegedly, while he was with the CIC there in post World War II, or at the tail end there, apparently he was that intelligence sector of the CIC was responsible for providing security for military installations and staging areas, located enemy agents, and acted to counter stay-behind networks, apparently. But in my mind, that seems a lot more like he's involved with Gladio, perpetuating and facilitating those stay-behind networks, potentially, and as well as kind of learning from these Nazi mind control assets while his time in the CIC. That's what it seems like to me, honestly, man.
It wouldn't be surprised me at all. And the people have made, he was an interrogator, so he's trying to ferret out during the war and after the war who should be watched. So they see some of the same thing, this kind of mental breakdown, kind of breaking down and analyzing people's mental states in this book that would reflect his real life experience. So I think this book reflects his real life. I get the sense that he was a front man for other ideas, in my opinion, because there's a lot too much sophistication in this book. If you can play this Taxi Driver clip too, I just brought it up.
Awesome.
Okay, bring back the slides now. So you see the same thing. What you'll see is that these guys, there's this fiction and reality of overlap with this book fused into it. Yeah,
there we go.
So there's Chapman, there's Hinckley. That was what's his face, Travis Bickle.
Hinckley. Oh yeah,
but it's still present. People are saying. I mean, there's so much talk about people wanting to assassinate Trump. They just had another one that I found out about this morning. Somebody hopped the fence to kill Trump at the White House. So this kind of assassination thing is present. And it goes back to these assassins that Mangione and Roop, whatever his name is.
Right.
Ruth, I think is his name. But yeah, so people are talking about this. And people are like, I don't know what like the country's falling apart, man. This is like we're in trouble. Like you should be prepping because it's just, I mean, well, if they can't get Trump, maybe they'll go for somebody else. That's what I mean. They just had The head of the FBI said he wants to have external private security because he doesn't trust other FBI members to keep him safe or protect. And he literally said that. That's what Kash Patel said. He doesn't trust his own people. They should have fired. They should have fired half of the FBI once he came in because half the FBI was involved in J6. Like the tyrannical Biden regime took half of the FBI and focused them on this event. They should all have to go. Like, it's incredible. These guys should be firing everybody. Like, anyway, that's another heights. So you have the event of Holden Caulfield and Phoebe we talked about in this film. This kind of thing is reflected between Travis Bickle and Jodie Foster's character, who I can't remember, but he's saving Jodie Foster, right? So he's saving her from all the bad stuff in the world. That's what Travis Bickle is really, and Bickle is very similar to Holden Caulfield in the sense that everything's dirty and everybody's fake, and he's kind of a disaffected nihilist.
Wow.
But Hinckley identifies with Bickle to the point where he literally became Bickle. So you see this fake character. This is from The President Has Been Shot, a book. Hinckley identified with Travis and began to act like him after he'd seen the film 15 times. He bought the same clothes, ate the same foods, drank the same liquors, and invented a girlfriend as had Bickle. So, and he bought the same pistols. And if you see a taxi driver, I don't know if you've seen it recently, there's a sequence of like gun buying and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like emulating. So Hinckley, and for people who don't know, Hinckley tried to kill Reagan 3 months after Chapman supposedly shot Lennon. I don't think Chapman shot Lennon. I don't think Oswald shot JFK.
No, I think it's same as Sirhan, where they're running distraction basically as the true. I think it was Robert Mayhew, I believe was his name, but as the who was moonlighting as a security guard at the Ambassador Hotel. When in reality, it's like we all know at this point it was a point blank shot at the back behind his ear. As far as RFK, as he's falling down on top of the murderer, who was the security guard working for Hughes at the time.
Thane Eugene Caesars.
That was it. Yeah.
He leaves the country and goes to the Philippines and nobody can find him.
Yeah.
That's not suspicious at all.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's so, this is still present, guys. RFK's son is now the head of HHS. Yep. This is still present. This is the past has not gone away. Mm-hmm. This is John Robert Bardo. This is another guy associated with the book. He killed this woman, Rebecca Schaefer. Yeah, and this is like stuff from this. It's really incredible. Red paperback copy. We've already seen that at the beginning. The Catcher in the Rye was found on the roof of the Beverly Palms Rehabilitation Center on Beverly Boulevard. Bardo indicated that he threw a red-covered paperback book entitled The Catcher in the Rye in the alleyway was running. The discovery of the book harked back to the 1981 shooting of former Beatle John. It was 1980. He gets it wrong. Mark David Chapman, who shot the singer, calmly took out a copy of the J.D. Salinger novel while police arrived. So there's 3 of them. Wow. Crazy, yeah. And these are, like, what's interesting too is they're both dealt with in newspapers, like back to back. So you see pictures of Chapman and Hinckley, both associated with the book. And here it says reads Catcher in the Rye passage in court, which we'll get to. So some people think like, oh, Chapman just had this book and like had it and was reading it. No. He carried it around like a child carries around a security blanket. It was far more profound than that.
It's mind control manual.
Yeah. Obsessed friend Robert Bardo carried the Catcher in the Rye and his assassin's kit to kill actress Rebecca Schaefer because John Lennon's killer carried the same book. A psychiatrist. Dietz is a big, well-known psychiatrist, but he claims that Bardo was schizophrenic. This is the same thing. He has a schizo disorder. There's a whole nother show we can do about Esther Brooks and split brain stuff because they can create it, but splitting. So he had a split brain. He wasn't aware of his things, all evil, all good, not aware of the shift in his emotions. And there's Bardo, that kind of weird face. They have this weird still face. I don't know what it is. They don't smile. They don't frown. They look strange. Yeah. Here's Hinckley and Chapman again, Schaefer. How the Catcher in the Rye is linked to JFK, John Lennon, and Rebecca Schaefer. The link supposedly to JFK is that, I haven't confirmed this, but somebody else has said that Oswald had a copy of the book on his body. And here's what we talked about. This is The Lovely Shining. She is reading Catcher in the Rye with that red title. And there's her split-brained kid, Danny, who's possibly been abused. I mean, that's kind of the subtext of this book, is that he's been sexually abused.
Wow.
And that's what drove him to have a split brain or have a shine to him or whatever. And she's wearing blue and red dress. And I don't know how smart these guys, they're pretty smart, all the people around Kubrick, but at the end, Phoebe's wearing a blue dress too at the end of
Wow.
Catcher in the Rye. So there might be a tie-in. This is the movie Conspiracy Theory, where he is has a Catcher in the Rye. So it's reflected in this book as well. Let me see if I can pull this up. There's a clip here from Conspiracy Theory. I don't know where it is. Where is it? Let me see if I can find it. But yeah, so this movie is all about conspiracy theories and things like that. But it's here's the clip. Let's see if you can bring this up. He goes to a bookstore. See if you can bring that video up.
Yeah. Thank you. Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah, it is.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
Have you ever read it?
Yeah, I've never read it.
Never?
Oh, I haven't. I've never read it. I never.
Yeah, so he's in a bookstore buying it too. Yeah, well, we'll see. It gets stranger because it comes into this whole thing. So this is Mason in the Rye. This is from Joe Atwell. And the very bottom of this, you can read this article online. This is from 2015, but it says, it is alleged that Lee Harvey Oswald had a copy in his apartment, and that's one of his favorite books. So,
My God.
You're just seeing all this stuff, this kind of weird stuff. You were talking about Lanza possibly having
Yeah. As I mentioned privately to William, it seems as if Adam Lanza of course Sandy Hook was apparently studying The Catcher in the Rye. So
if he even existed or whatever the story is.
Exactly. Yeah. And somebody just brought up the fact that Sirhan was associated with the Rosicrucian Order. I found that, very compelling whenever I did my episode on the ultimate evil, because I crossed paths with Sirhan during the Process Church. Apparently, as the group's leadership turned over the reins to local disciples in LA, power plays and political infighting inevitably resulted. But basically, it was because of differences in philosophy and theology. But the cult went underground as the aftermath of the assassination of RFK. And basically, this was perhaps concerning that law enforcement would hear of Sirhan's occult interests and alleged acquaintance with a Process member. And it was Ed Sanders, the author, that wrote the 1971 book, The Family. He says, it is possible that the Process had a baleful influence on Sirhan, since Sirhan is known in the spring of '68 to have frequented clubs in Hollywood in the same turf as the Process was proselytizing. Sirhan was very involved in occult pursuits. He has talked several times subsequent to Robert Kennedy's death about an occult group from London, which he knew about, and which he really wanted to go to London to see. There was one Process member named Lloyd, who was coincidentally working as a chef for a large Los Angeles hotel named the Ambassador, where the assassination would take place. It is probably a coincidence that Sirhan seems to have visited a friend who worked in the kitchen of the Ambassador Hotel the day before he fired shots at Senator RFK. Well, which I think they were blanks, most likely. But
what a coincidence.
Isn't that fascinating? My gosh. And by the way, to that point, and then continue, I just had realized I had discovered something that I found very interesting. Apparently, this guy named Joseph Atwill.
That's him right here. That's his work.
Okay, that's who this. Okay,
yeah, that's
very interesting.
Yeah.
J.D. Salinger and the Freemason in the Rye. Yeah, that's it. The Freemason in the Rye. This is blowing my mind, William. I had no idea that this was potentially a cryptic representation of Caulfield going through the levels of Freemasonry and in this initiatory practice, with a central mystery concerning the identity of the secret society and an unknown oath that is eventually pledged to the death by this essentially degenerate anti-hero. Very interesting. And there's no way this is coincidental, man. Like, there's no way.
How does Salinger know all this stuff? That's what I mean. I know he's an intelligence guy. He's obviously from a wealthy family. He's been educated. But like this is tying into all this kind of studying of split brain, schismogenesis, Esther Brooks, all these characters, you know, it's really just something else. But anyway, that's a whole nother article. I mean, all this stuff, a lot. I asked Grok about Lee Harvey Oswald. So there's speculation. Grok isn't that good. It doesn't know kind of the secret books and stuff like that. It's kind of Grok is kind of even Grok 3 is kind of like a clueless normie who's maybe read one or two conspiracy books.
That's so funny.
But he doesn't know much. This is the repeat of what I said earlier. This is a people shooting hat. I shoot people in this hat. There he is. This is what you can see right now in the audiobook for Catcher in the Rye on Amazon is him with his human hunting hat. So at first glance, it's like, oh, this is a weird guy walking around urban Manhattan with a hunting hat. But then like the interior thing is like it's a human hunting hat. It's established. I did this Mind Games this David Whelan studied. This is recent. This is last year. But yeah, he doesn't think that Chapman was at all involved in taking the shots at Lennon at all.
Mm-hmm.
That he was a patsy. But we're going to read from Fenton Bresler's Murder of John Lennon, where there's 2 chapters about mind control. So you can see this thing, this trance notion of Chapman. And like literally in this book, Holden Caulfield puts this woman in a trance. He literally walks in, he's on a train to New York City and runs into one of his fellow students' mothers. And he puts her in he can lie forever, by the way. He says he can lie for hours and hours. And then I put her into a trance. Like he says he literally uses the word trance.
What the hell?
Crazy. Yeah. I'm capable of lying for hours. So he's like a serial liar. He loves blood. I'm fascinated and scared by blood. This is so graphic. And then he repeats, I'm like a madman over and over again. And there's also a very strong anti-Christian message in this book, which is perfect. Like it fits in with all of this kind of culture war stuff. He identifies with Legion, who is the demon-possessed guy who has a legion of demons in his body.
Oh my God.
He reads the Bible, but he thinks that the apostles are a joke, and he wonders, actually, is Judas going to hell?
Oh my God.
Yeah, so he literally, like, this is what's writing in this. Like, it's crazy. I mean, he's lonesome, depressed, insomniac. He has every psychological problem. But the fact that it's really anti-Christian and that he identifies with somebody possessed is also really strange. Like, and he uses fake names a lot, so he's lying. He's like a trickster. So like, oh yeah, my name's Joe or whatever. He'll like use fake names. Like it's so weird for a 16-year-old. Yeah. So he has his own kind of fake persona, like in this. And the other thing that's powerful about the book is like, it's not written in the third person. You're perceiving his perceptions in his mind. Right. So it's not like, oh, then Joe went there and then Mary came out. It's like, then I did this and then, this happened and everybody's fake. Everybody's full of perverts and morons. And the people are always ruining things for you. And there's like every sexual like depravities in this book too. So he witnesses transvestitism, dudes putting on dresses, prostitutes. He's a voyeur. He goes to visit. Like, it's very strange what he does. He reaches out to people he doesn't even like and visits them or calls them or whatever and meets up with them. And maybe this is before like the cell phones or stuff. But he literally goes to his professor Antolini, and Antolini kind of who's like cleaned up after a suicide of one of Caulfield's like cohorts or one of his fellow students. And then Antolini tries to put the move on him. So it's like homosexuality. But then Holden's like, whoa, what's going on? And then Antolini says, you're a very, very strange boy, aren't you? And Caulfield says, yes, I am.
Oh my God.
So he responds in that way. And then he leaves and he goes, man, I've been in these pervy situations like 10 or 20 times, which at 16 means that he's just in this environment of pedophilia or whatever you want to call it, gay, man, boy, love. I don't know what you call it.
My God, man.
Dude,
that is dark as hell.
Then, so this other thing that kind of keys in with the kind of cultural revolutionary stuff of Kinsey, he runs into this guy, Luce, at a bar who knows everything about sex. And the guy, Luce, is like half of married guys are gay. This is not true. This is not statistically true, but they're putting that in this book. They're putting that idea into the public mind that it's true because he's talking about it. And Kinsey promotes all this stuff. And if you've listened to my shows or anything, Kinsey's conclusions are the exact same conclusions of Aleister Crowley, who Kinsey admired, which is there are no rules. Everybody's bisexual, trisexual, pedophilia is okay. You're not hurting the kids.
My
blah,
God.
blah, 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 blah. Yeah,
Predictive programming in a way.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy.
That is.
He imagines his death. Oh, it's just. I mean, he's dissociating.
That ties in with?
Yeah.
That ties in with the Columbine shooters.
He wonders what it'll be like to throw himself off a building and kill himself.
Oh my God!
So suicide. Like, this is dark, dude. It's a really dark book. He hates everything. He cries all the time. He attacked, like you talked about, Stratlater. There's a sequence at the beginning of his book where he attacks Stratlater, tries to put him in a headlock without provocation. He just decided to attack Stratlater. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. No. And then at the end, like, I miss Stratlater and Ackerley, you know? I don't really know why. And then at the very end of the book, it wraps up. He goes like, I don't know why I told you this. I don't even know if it matters or something. I mean, the direct quote, something else, but he never learns anything from his situation. So he's like, it's like there's no conclusion of good and bad at the end.
That is so strange.
Oh no, it's the strangest book.
The end sort of, he suggests that the implication is that he gets sick and becomes institutionalized, right? Isn't that sort of what the implication is?
He is in an institution. He is like he's at some hospital or something where his brother is coming to see him. Yeah. And he says his brother's girlfriend walked all the way down the halls. But yeah, it's not really obvious. Like, it's not like an overt, but he's clearly in somewhere. And I think he starts the book off saying, I'm going to start telling you about my story, you know. So it kind of breaks the fourth wall at the end where he's back to telling you, which is you're in his mind, this kind of screwed up person's mind for 270 pages or 26 chapters.
So it almost becomes your own internal dialogue as the reader, which has to have some sort of ultimate impact when it comes down to,
it's making people disturbed. You're in the, I mean, I've had the misfortune in my life to be around people who are not, you know, or like disturbed people, like they're mentally, and it affects you. Like you can't take it too, I mean, maybe some people can, but like if you're in the present, this is what's happening in this book. It's the same dynamic. Like you're in the presence of somebody who's like, doesn't have positive things like, oh, I met this nice person and we had a positive discussion. I learned something. And then this one, it's not like that. He's totally nihilistic, chain smoking, pyromaniac. I mean, it's crazy. Anyway, so this whole trance like is reflected in this book and in these characters. When you come in detail about Mark Chapman behaved after Lennon's murder, you will find a striking parallel between the dazed, as if in a trance-like condition of the two men. He's talking about Sirhan. Mark remembered more about the actual killing, but otherwise their reactions were almost identical.
My God.
And do you know what's interesting? Between Sirhan and Chapman, they had the same doctor. And this is interesting because Fenton Bresler doesn't get this in this book because he says and writes this in writing, which to me is really funny. He says, there's an odd footnote to all this. This is the central key component of this.
No shit.
He says in writing, there's an odd footnote to all this. The principal medical defense witness for Sirhan was Dr. Bernard Diamond of the University of California, one of America's leading psychiatrists who used hypnosis in his work. 13 years later, he's to be one of the defense psychiatrists for Mark's case. His diagnosis for the two men was the same: paranoid schizophrenia.
Of course.
These are covers up. These are cover. This is to me, an obvious cover up.
Hell yeah, that's a cover up.
He seems to have not used hypnosis on either of his two interviews with Mark, although he hypnotized Sirhan for 6 of his 8 visits to great effect.
Yes.
They said there was somebody who went in to hypnotize Sirhan, and he was the most hypnotizable subject he had ever encounter. He would go into a deep trance like that.
Yep, it was that Dr. Bernard Diamond, right? As far as
him,
Yeah, the expert in psychology, law, and criminology. He's the one who put Sirhan into a hypnotic trance in order to have him relive the event under hypnosis.
There were
And
others. Sirhan's been repeatedly hypnotized. There was
oh
another
yeah,
guy from Harvard too who did it.
I think the prosecution and the defense both
Yeah.
put him into a hypnotic trance.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think the prosecution, they were flat out leading the witness while he's in this hypnotic trance. It was stunning to watch. He goes, Sirhan, you want to kill RFK. You pull the gun out, right? He's like telling him what he did. And then Sirhan goes into a convulsion, basically, and he starts just pulling a fantasy trigger, and he just starts, and he can't, like, it's so strange, man. It was very obvious that he had been, very much, what they had said was that he saw targets in his eyes and thought he was at the gun range. That was what happened when he was triggered into the hypnotic trance. I remember that he writes on the piece of paper when he's asked, who was with you when you shot him? And he goes, girl, the girl. And then he says his only other recollection was of being choked by someone on a table in the pantry. This had indeed taken place, of course, when one of the men escorting Kennedy had grabbed him in a headlock to try to stop him pumping out more bullets, which, by the way, as he's tackled to the ground, he doesn't stop pulling the trigger, even though the gun's not in his hand. He's still doing the physical, pulling of the trigger, which just goes to show he was in a trance when this was taking place. And the last point is that basically he goes, Sirhan couldn't recall shooting the senator, nor could he remember ever writing anything about wanting to kill him. And so, of course, Diamond thought that was very strange, and so not long after the shooting, police had found a notebook, of course, of Sirhan's at his house, which he had allegedly written: RFK must die, RFK must be killed, Robert F. Kennedy must be assassinated. It seems like it was, his programming essentially is that when he was in these trances, he would effectively continue to reinforce his programming, that because it didn't make any sense as far as the jumbled writing. But then he's still in a trance. He starts making scribbles on this paper. When asked why he was doing this, he writes, practice, 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 practice. Practice for what? Asked the professor. Mind control, mind control, mind control, mind control, wrote Sirhan. Get the fuck out of here. This is just crazy, right? Like,
I will. These repetitive phrases are in this phraseologies in this book. There's absolutely no question.
Exactly.
Another expert, Herbert Spiegel, leading medical hypnotist, said of Sirhan, quote, it's very possible to distort and change somebody's mind through a number of hypnotic sessions. It can be described as brainwashing because the mind is cleared of its old emotions and values, which are replaced by implanting other suggestions. This technique was probably used with Sirhan. From my own research, I think Sirhan was subjected to hypnotic treatment. So I think that this, like changing somebody's mind, this is kind of the template that's in this book.
Yeah.
It's not, you may not be a hypnotic subject, but you're being exposed in internal dialogue, reading this book, into a real piece of trash. That's the next way to put it. There's nothing redeemable about Holden Caulfield. He's a total punk. He doesn't work. He wastes his parents' money. It's totally off the charts. This is Diamond. Is this crazy writing? Diamond asks. Yes, yes, yes. Are you crazy? No, no. Well, why are you writing crazy? Practice, practice, practice. For
oh my God.
Mind control, mind control.
Exactly,
mind control,
man. My God, William.
And that's it. You will. Like, that's the whole thing.
And I believe it was.
I only have another half an hour. I got to wrap this up.
Okay, sounds good, brother. I'm not trying to keep you. I just the only
this.
Thing is,
let me just continue with my presentation. Right? Okay, let me just.
No, I am. But it was psychic driving, right? That was my only question. Yeah. Ewan Cameron.
Right, Cameron.
Go ahead, brother.
The book is the amazed New York policeman found him quietly reading outside the Dakota when he had thrown down his gun immediately after killing Lennon, with the inscription inside the cover written by Mark to Holden Caulfield from Holden Caulfield. So Chapman had become Holden Caulfield in his mind. This is my statement. So he says, to Holden Caulfield from Holden Caulfield, this is my statement. In his prison cell awaiting trial, he maintained, Quote, the reason I killed John Lennon was to gain prominence, to promote the reading of J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. I'm not saying I'm a messiah or anything like that. If you read the book and you understand my past, you will see that I am indeed the catcher in the rye of this generation. So he's become the catcher in the rye in his mind. And I've already said like this, Holden Caulfield, there's no catcher in there, but he says, Holden Caulfield says specific things of like, he's triggered by this word FU. And he says, if I catch that guy, I'm going to beat him to death. This is very violent. So this trigger word catch is repeated in the phrase. It's not in Burns's poem. It's repeated in the text, and it's associated with ultra violence, much like Travis Bickle and these violent acts. And I think that's very important to understand.
Absolutely.
Anonymous new fact. This is the whole thing about Chapman. He didn't have it for 15 years. According to Fenton Bresler, now an ominous new factor came into his life. He became interested in The Catcher in the Rye. We do not know why. We do not know if anyone suggested it to him, and if so, who. Catcher is a book that most people read once in their lifetime in their teens, and that is it, much like me. Why on earth, seemingly out of the blue, did Mark suddenly get so involved in a book that, like most of his generation of young Americans, he had already read before at school nearly 10 years earlier? So that's it. So it's like Catcher in the Rye. So, I mean, it's crazy. This passage, he talks about, this is what I'm mentioning, this catch notion. This is when he's in, I think he's in the Museum of Natural History, which is off of Central Park. He's visiting his beloved young sister Phoebe's school, and an abortive attempt to talk to her sees the words FU written on the wall. Quote, it drove me damn near crazy. I thought how Phoebe and all the other little kids would see it and how they'd wonder what the hell it meant. And then finally some dirty kid would tell them. I kept wanting to kill whoever written it. I figured it was some perverty bum that sneaked into school late at night and then wrote it on the wall. I kept picturing myself catching, right? The catchphrase, catching him at it and how I'd smash his head on the stone steps until he was good and goddamn dead and bloody. Wow. I wouldn't have the guts to do it. So he's kind of a repressed violent, like everything's repressed.
Yeah.
But let me go on. He also, going through, he told his perplexed wife he was thinking of changing his name to Holden Caulfield. On 10th of September, he actually wrote to a school teacher friend named Linda Irish, who had moved from Honolulu is very key, to New Mexico. Quote, I'm going nuts, unquote. He drew a picture of Diamond Head Mountain with the sun, moon, and stars above it and signed it the letter, The Catcher in the Rye. So he was the catcher in the rye. I mean, it gets crazy.
Yeah.
This is my statement. So as he walked, so we already saw the picture of from Conspiracy Theory of Mel Gibson buying a Catcher in the Rye at the bookstore. I think that's a famous bookstore in LA they actually used for the set. But as he walked the 20 blocks up to the Dakota on West 72nd Street, incongruous amid the lightly dressed New Yorkers with his heavy winter gear, he realized he was missing a prop. He had with him his Double Fantasy album, but something was missing. He halted his progress toward Lennon's selected place of execution and dived into a bookshop to emerge with a red paperback copy of Catcher in the Rye. On the title page, he wrote, to Holden Caulfield, from Holden Caulfield, and below, this is my statement. Wow. And then he went to the bookstore. He makes this statement. Then later, on February 1st, he writes to the New York Times. This is about a month and a half after he supposedly killed Lennon. And he writes this, quote, it is my sincere belief that presenting this written statement will not only stimulate the reading of J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye, but will also help many to understand what has happened. If you were able to view an actual copy of The Catcher in the Rye that was taken from me on the night of December 8th, you could find it, the handwritten words, this is my statement. Unfortunately, I was unable to continue this stance and have since spoken openly with the police, doctors, and others involved in this case. He had 6 doctors. I now fully realize that this should not have been done, for it removed the emphasis that I wanted to place on the book. My wish is for all of you to someday read The Catcher in the Rye. Wow. All of my efforts will now be devoted towards this goal, for this extraordinary book holds many answers. My true hope is that in wanting to find these answers, you will read The Catcher in the Rye. Thank you, Mark David Chapman, The Catcher in the Rye.
My God, man.
Totally crazy. Then at court in August, this is like 9 months later from the so-called murder, Mark Chapman and his hair close cropped from the incident. Shaving their head is actually a consistent theme of mind control. You'll actually see that in this new Chaos movie where the girls shave all their heads.
Yeah.
You see people with shaved heads after they've been in something. Watch out.
Yeah.
Craig Crimmins help. He had totally shaved his head, walked into Justice Edwards' court under the usual heavy guard. He carried with him a copy of The Catcher in the Rye. So there he is. He got a bulletproof vest. Then he makes this statement. He gets up and says, I reads from the book and then said, I'd just be the Catcher in the Rye. So it's incredible. He read an extract of The Catcher in the Rye in court. So this isn't something like a casual connection to Chapman. This is part of his thing. Mm-hmm. And then this is from Rawhide Down. That was the code word for Reagan. And this is about Hinckley, about him traveling around, this weird traveling around. Like Chapman had he couldn't pay for certain stuff. He had a labor job, but he could afford these flights to and from Hawaii to to New York over and over again. Much like Ruth. Where's Mangione getting his money? These guys are all very suspicious, but the 4-day trip was a blur of fast food and brief stops: Las Vegas, Cheyenne, Chicago, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. Traveling through Utah, he woke from a brief nap to find the bus hurtling through a massive snowstorm. He spent much of the trip slouched in a window seat, watching the scenery stream by or reading A Catcher in the Rye. J.D. Salinger's novel of teenage angst and alienation. There's so much more going on in this. He identified with the story's main character, Holden Caulfield, but the book was also special to him because he knew that John Lennon's assassin had pulled it from his pocket and leafed through it moments after gunning down the rock and roll icon. Lennon, who had been killed 3.5 months earlier, was Hinckley's favorite musician. So sometimes he felt he identified more with Lennon's killer than with Lennon himself. So here he is identifying with Chapman and Travis Bickle. But it gets richer. Like, if you know kind of parapolitical history of the United States, these people who recommend this book are so freaking sinister. Like, you have to wonder what they knew. Somebody who just popped up as the CIA, head of the CIA in like 1970 or whatever. Mm-hmm. This is George Bush, 1995. Was there a book that inspired you? Yes, there was a book, marvelous book by Salinger called Catcher in the Rye.
Oh my God.
And then here's Bill Gates.
Oh shit.
I read a lot, but I don't always choose what's on the bestseller list. You may notice there aren't many novels on my list this year. It's not that I don't enjoy fiction. I've read The Catcher in the Rye a bunch of times. It's one of my favorite books ever.
This is crazy, man.
Crazy. So there's Ruth. This guy, these kids, Chapman, Ruth, and Mangione, all have a tie to the island of Oahu in the state of Hawaii. They're all very close to each other. And then this mystery guy, this Good Girl movie had a kind of a theme of Catcher in the Rye in it. Mm-hmm. And then there's Jared Leto plays Chapman in chapter 27. There's 26 chapters to Catcher in the Rye, but this is good. And if you watch this, you realize how well they knew the book, because statements from the book are reflected in this. I think Leto's a really good actor. I'm a strange guy, but
yeah, I agree. Whenever you sent me those links, I watched that trailer as well. I thought it was a phenomenal trailer, and then that strange synchronicity to him owning the property of Lookout Mountain Laboratory now, right? Mm-hmm. Which just falls perfectly in place with Mockingbird and Laurel Canyon. But very interesting, right?
Wizard of Oz is also a book that's used in some of these like weird hypnotic things, and Chapman, and in this movie they show him taking out the Wizard of Oz theme thing. You know, the wizard. Oz is 77 in the occult too, but I mean, I go into kind of Holden meaning. Ruth is in here. This is from Serge Slothrop. The NYPD claims to have found the CEO shooter's backpack near the carousel in Central Park.
Oh my!
Exactly where The Catcher in the Rye ends. So, and loose as a stand-in. So it goes back to that cover of the book of the carousel with the horse. So literally, Mangione and this murder of the head of the CEO. Very strange, very similar to Chapman, where it flies all the way across country to kill some guy at 7 a.m. in the morning, literally like 4 or 5 blocks away from Central Park, where the end of Catcher in the Rye takes place. And where, for people who don't know, the Lennon shooting was Dakota, is literally where, Rosemary's Baby takes place. Literally is on Central Park, right? It's literally like, and Chapman's walking around that whole place.
But there has to be occult connotations to that, as far as the connection to that seems too extraordinary. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of Yeah, there has to be an occult implication to the area itself, right? That's symbolically, you would imagine.
Maybe there's an insight. I mean, Salinger is from New York, so
Yeah.
he may know darker stuff or things about that are in the book
Mm-hmm.
that Atwell pointed out, but I don't know.
Yeah.
But in one of the interesting things is this other guy, Bremer, was the inspiration for Bickle. So Bremer shoots George Wallace, who was like an up and coming political guy. I forgot who it benefited, but I think it benefited Nixon that he get taken out of the race. And then Arthur Bremer suddenly shows up and shoots him, and he's the foundation for Travis Bickle. And so,
Wow.
Yeah, it's really crazy. Gets crazier because Bremer's inspiration. He goes on. The writing style, this is just from Wikipedia, but it just shows like all this kind of dark stuff that's in the book. A lot of homosexual stuff. I forgot that's in here.
Mm-hmm.
Phony, snowing over people. But this is from the Cultural Cold War. I was trying to find a trace of where Salinger could have been influenced. And this is The CIA and the Worlds of Arts and Letters by Frances Stoner Saunders, where she mentions this one CIA cutout literally was spending money to a new generation of writers. So you see this kind of culture creation going all the way back. Urging Spender to open the literary pages to a new generation of American writers like Saul Bellow, J.D. Salinger, Truman Capote, Shirley Ann Grau. I don't know some of those. This is Bremer. So this is the guy who shot Wallace. And Travis Bickle was partially based on the life of Arthur Bremer. And there's Bremer in a headlock after he shot Wallace. That's Wallace down. Here's the kicker about Bremer. He shot Wallace, I think, on May 15th, the week before. He was in Milwaukee. That's where he's from. I think he's from Wisconsin. This is his diary, which is the whole intel story by itself. Whether he wrote it or not is an open question. Milwaukee, saw Clockwork Orange and thought about getting Wallace all through the picture. Fantasizing myself as Alex. So he's fantasizing himself as the guy in Clockwork Orange, Alex DeLarge.
Oh my God.
But without my brothers. Just a little of the old ultraviolence. So we've seen this theme of ultraviolence in the book at the end. Like, I'm going to find whoever wrote FU and bash them to death, right?
Right.
And I've decided to honor it. What would you call it? So it's like, and then Hoover. Like, this is supposedly, I mean, it's crazy. The rumor is that Howard Hunt was the one who wrote the diary for Bremer, which gets really dark.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
It makes all the sense in the world. He was kind of leveraged to write so many different pieces of literature for the CIA. Nuts.
Yeah. He's a great writer. Actually, Hunt was a super talented guy. I mean, I'm not saying he was a nice guy or a good person.
Right.
He was the head of operations for the CIA in the United States and was formerly the head of CIA operations in the 50s in Mexico City, which really was probably the most important outpost of the CIA outside of the U.S. because they ran the country, man. They ran every freaking president of Mexico for decades. Like, people have no idea about this, but they were all installed by the CIA. In the memoir, Hunt reports that the day after the assassination of Wallace attempted, he received a call from Chuck Colson, famously said, quote, "Get them by the balls and their hearts and minds will follow." He literally had that. Yeah. When he was in the Nixon White House, he had that on a placard. Get them by the balls and their hearts and minds will follow. Asking him to break into Bremer's apartment and plant leftist literature to connect him to the Democrats. So it's like everybody's always trying to make everybody else look bad.
Right.
Hunt said he was highly skilled. So that's a whole nother, I can do a whole nother show on that, but I'm trying to go with this theme of like the program killers. Mangione becomes a hero, share their support. He's kind of like this anti-hero now. Like, this guy's become something that's denied, defend, depose, or whatever.
Yep.
Who is Mangione influenced by? Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski.
I didn't realize that.
He like literally read his stuff. This is Mangione's review of Kaczynski's Industrial Society and His Future, right?
Oh,
so
my
he's
God.
like saying, he wrote this quote, "He had the balls to recognize that peaceful protest has gotten us absolutely nowhere. At the end of the day, he's probably right." So he's like doing this. Communications fail.
Man.
Accused Ivy League killer was not united. There's no we can't figure out why he selected. I mean, supposedly because he's corrupt, but he didn't have a connection to this guy who's the head of the United Healthcare. This is his manifesto. But this is like the decline of a guy formerly successful, wealthy. He doesn't have to work. I don't think he has to work. Like he's like doing all this crazy stuff, working in AI. Disappears from friends for 3 months. 2024 December, shows up and kills a healthcare CEO in Manhattan, 5 blocks off of Central Park. His stuff ends up in Central Park. Who was the psychiatrist over Kaczynski? Murray.
Yep.
What did Murray do? He created this vicious, like, psychological thing that broke down Kaczynski for the MK Ultra. Like, this is literally it. Murray's intellectual curiosity was often pushed boundaries. His most controversial work began in 1959 with a study on stress responses, involving 22 Harvard undergraduates, including Kaczynski. This experiment, conducted over 3 years, aimed to understand how individuals withstand psychological pressure, a topic perhaps informed by another wartime experience.
Mm-hmm.
The study, often dubbed the multiform assessment's personality development, was deceptively framed participants as a benign explorations of beliefs. Kaczynski, a brilliant but socially awkward sophomore, for 3 years. Kaczynski assigned, he had a code name, Lawful. The experience was particularly intense. Over 3 years, he endured roughly 200 hours of these sessions. Imagine the behavioral change. Murray described the interrogations as vehement, sweeping, and personally abusive, stark contrast to the ethical norms emerging in psychology at the time. So you literally have Mangione influenced by a guy who came out of an MK Ultra kind of like thing at Harvard.
Yeah.
In 59 to 62, it's all in this book. And then here's Mangione, this kind of like hero, free Luigi. Man. Crazy stuff.
It's amazing.
Let me see if I can find this. Let me see if I can get this. Like, let's watch something from. No, I'll wrap it up. I got a hard stop at 12. Let's watch the Bremer shoots dead. We'll see what I mean, it just gets crazier and crazier. This is like the top. This is the tip of the iceberg. Play this one.
Alrighty.
Arthur Bremer shot Alabama Governor George Wallace on May 15, 1972, while Wallace was holding a presidential campaign rally in Laurel, Maryland. Police immediately arrested Bremer, and after they learned his identity, Secret Service and FBI agents searched Bremer's Milwaukee apartment. Inside, they found a Confederate flag and .38 caliber bullets like the ones used to shoot Wallace. Bremer's father and his brother couldn't believe it.
There's no explanation for if it was him, his behavior, and what had happened. There's no explanation we can give at all.
Neighbors said Bremer was odd.
He never had many friends with him. He was always like a loner.
The 21-year-old loner from Milwaukee was convicted and sentenced to prison. Now, with a long, scraggly beard and a receding hairline.
Notice that same still face, right?
Yeah,
like,
man.
No smiling, like weird. They're all the same.
Bremer appears to have aged a lot in the last 10 years. His warden describes Bremer as a model prisoner who doesn't have many friends.
I can't say categorically that he does not have any friends or associates in here, but he's not the type of inmate that...
Listen to this again with his parents.
And .38 caliber, and his brother couldn't believe it.
There's no explanation for if it was him, his behavior, and what had happened. There's no explanation we can give at all.
Neighbors said Bremer was...
Now watch this one. This, you can tell, this very influential film, Taxi Driver, lifted Arthur Bremer onto the screen, like took a fictional guy and put it right into Taxi Driver. It's the same motif. So play this film if you can.
Okay.
Today I say to you, we have reached the turning point. No longer will we the people suffer for the few.
This, I think this is Central Park, by the way. This is Central Park.
Wow. So good.
Bremer's clapping, and then
I would lie to you if I told you the new roads would be easy. They will not be easy. Nothing that is right and good has ever been easy. We the people know that. And we the people know the right road and the good. Today I say to you, we are the people, you and I, and it is time to let the people rule. Thank you.
Anyway,
That's
it's
so
just
good.
the similarities are all there. Like they
Oh, yeah.
clearly saw that clip of Bremer. So
Man.
here's the thing: so these real people identify. Bremer identifies with Alex DeLarge. Chapman identifies with Caulfield, and then the other guy? What's his name? Totally blanking. What's the guy who shot? What's the guy who shot Reagan? Identifies with
Hinckley?
this guy. Hinckley
Yeah,
identifies with Travis Bickle. So like you're seeing weird things take place. Like it's really crazy.
Absolutely.
Huge events like the death of Lenin and almost death of Reagan would be incredible. And who would have come to power if Reagan dead? The guy who recommends the
George
Catcher in the
H.
Rye, George H.W. Bush.
My God, man. That is really extraordinary, honestly, and like especially understanding the underlying power paradigm behind the true political puppets, and kind of how they swap them out at a moment's notice, but it's usually, you still see the heavy hidden hand behind the puppet, which I don't understand how people still fall into the traps, but it's got to be just kind of like a vulnerability and naivete at a certain point. But man, there is no way in hell that all of this is coincidental, right? Like as far as the connections directly involved with, in my mind, the pop culture symbolism as well, which is extraordinarily overlapping with the book, but I think that it seems like this was potentially written by some network of spooks who had a very specific technique and strategy in mind for using this as a potential blueprint and playbook that they could essentially compromise these Manchurian assets right on the ground as far as the operational level. This would be the way to kind of like escalate what they like to at the very least, what was their terminology behind it? It was they like to say it was the angst and alienation, the themes for the adolescents, right? This would be the way to completely escalate that kind of pathway. You know what I mean? And as far as like the neurological pathways involved with mind control in general, I think that is a fascinating, a factor to acknowledge. You know what I'm saying? But
100%.
yeah,
100%. And then imagine like the scripts are already written into the book. So this is like you're reading it, and then like the script's there, and it's like, okay, you will. So then it's implanted deep in the subconscious, and then reading the book, it's reinforcing this already placed, concepts. Like it's incredible. Kill. If I find somebody who says F you, how many of these killings would they see somebody wrote the word F you somewhere? Like that could be a trigger for these people. Like to go into a manic, violent state. So I think you're right. And I think the book has to be seen in the larger conflict context of what was happening at that time after World War II. There's the cultural Cold War. So we're fighting a battle against this great enemy, and the Russians are great at putting ideas into the culture. I mean, they're classics at doing that. So why wouldn't these guys in Intel do that as well?
Absolutely.
When was the NSA Act? 47? Like, I mean, come on. This is 4 years later. There's all kinds of stuff going on. So
Exactly.
it's not outside of the realm of possibility. And I'm suspect of whether, I think that Salinger's a bright guy, but one of the giveaways is like, this is his most famous book. Like, he didn't follow up with another thing. Like, you know, some of these other people who are real smart will have rise and fall in their career, or have another hit or another one that's good. There's nothing really memorable about him. He became a recluse, kind of like, it reminds me of like the guys who supposedly went to the moon. Like, why aren't they running around? Like, if I was Salinger, I'd be going and get all the laurels and accolades and things, people to pay me to study at their school. You know, there's all kinds of money for famous writers or whatever to just show up or go to book clubs for whatever benefits, free meals or late women or something. I don't know.
Absolutely, man.
It doesn't happen to him. Like, why isn't he taking the golden ring or the brass ring from the carousel, so to speak? Because that's how the book ends. But yeah, there's more. I mean, I've scratched the surface. I could do a full show on just the literary breakdown of the book, because it doesn't stop for 270 pages. It's really incredible.
Right. Well, we'll wrap up and get you out of here then, brother. But I do appreciate you coming on, of course. This is one of the most fascinating discussions as far as, again, I was not as aware as I should have been as far as the context involving this very much potentially is some sort of mind control manual, and understanding the subliminal messaging involved, as well as J.D. Salinger's connections to essentially being a counter intelligence agent, right?
He's an intel agent. He's definitely an intel agent. Yeah.
Exactly. And as we mentioned privately before starting the show, I mean, it's the fact that I was reading about Salinger earlier, that he's connected to this. He's apparently a member of what's called the Ritchie Boys, and it's apparently this secretive Jewish combat intelligence group that were on the Western Front from 44 to 45, and that involving his CIC connections. And then he comes back and he seems to like go to some Jesuit trained camp of some kind, where they have where it seemingly there were many different authors who were involved as well, and that's where. And allegedly he began writing The Catcher in the Rye while he's still in the military as well, which I found strange, at least worthwhile in acknowledging. But yeah, man, I'll let you go. But the one final, there's like this very small statement and aside that I thought is just something that would kind of like in our outro, it would be a great thing to reference, because it was during my James Holmes episode. I ended it with this statement from Lynn Hersha, who co-authored a book with her sister, and it was titled Secret Weapons: How Two Sisters Were Brainwashed to Kill for Their Country. And Lynn writes in the book, "What angers me is the loss of control. At any moment, someone could come to me, be dressed the right way, and use the right code, and I no longer have free will. I will do anything that person requests. I hate them for that. Nothing else is as bad as knowing that I'm always out of control, knowing that I'm still a laboratory experiment, a puppet whose strings are hidden from everyone but my handlers, and I don't yet know how to break free." And I just think that it's eye-opening in acknowledging the level of sophisticated techniques that they've honestly been able to achieve over generations, man, decades of attempting to manipulate our minds. But these, again, what they've been able to achieve is something that we can't quite conceptualize, I think, honestly, man. And I think that your presentation almost proves that point, right? Undeniably, that there's a level of manipulation and control that I think the vast majority of the public has yet to even acknowledge, let alone understand. Right.
Hey, they said that MK Ultra didn't work, and this whole thing was a big waste of time.
Exactly.
But they always tell the truth. I mean,
Right,
here's the
right.
thing: is like whatever public statement they say, they lie so constantly that the opposite's true. So if they say we destroyed all the documents, there's probably some underground base with all those documents plus another, 10 times that amount of other stuff they've been doing: voice to skull, nanotech,
Oh, yeah.
personality change. They say some of these people who took the kill shot, their personality, not only was their health gone or some people's health died, it was a huge mass experiment, but their personalities have changed. So who knows what they were doing? Like, you're a lab rat, and a lot of the stuff that went on with these assassins were patsy creations. That's what people think. They make the mistake. They think what they've done is creating a mind control assassin. They're mind controlled patsies. That's the distinction they have to understand. And
I completely agree. Okay.
Peace.
Sounds good. All right, William. Have a great day, brother. I appreciate you again. All right, guys, we'll get on out of here. I think the last thing that I'll say is there was a statement that I read. It's a line in chapter 21 of the book written by J.D. Salinger that we've been discussing this entire episode. And it clearly points out this sort of use of hypnotization and mind control in this vague way. And he says, Salinger says, it's funny. All you have to do is say something nobody understands, and they'll do practically anything you want them to. And I just think that that's a very strange perspective, especially considering how this very much seems like the imagery of the book and the predictive programming, as far as the what very much seems like pop culture symbolism as well. This is 100% subliminal messaging, and we talked about Sirhan. And it's very interesting to me. The final note I'll make is just about the fact that he was, in my mind, certainly Sirhan, according to his defense attorney as well, Lawrence Teeter. He still believes that Sirhan was operating under MK Ultra mind control techniques when he shot at RFK, even though I believe those were blanks. Both the prosecution and defense had trained hypnotists put Sirhan in a trance on the record during the trial. And it's so strange because his defense team's most recent appeal claims Sirhan was subjected to sophisticated hypnoprogramming and was not in control of his actions during the committed crime. Sirhan, widely considered to have been a prime candidate for the infamous technique psychic driving, a system of brainwashing made famous by Dr. Ewan Cameron, who received direct funding through MKUltra Subproject 68 and outsourced MKUltra to Canada, where he carried out the Montreal experiments from 1957 through 1964 for behavioral modification research. According to official sources investigating MKUltra, many of Dr. Cameron's patients were at the Allen Memorial Institute of McGill University for common medical problems such as postpartum depression or anxiety disorders, and were then subjected to his driving technique and placed into a drug-induced coma for weeks at a time. Some of the reports showed his victims forgetting their parents and thinking their interrogators were their parents. So I think that the dark implications surrounding The Catcher in the Rye, the strong overtones of pedophilia all throughout the book, let alone the imagery, which clearly brings in to context the potentially a potential reference to human hunting parties, right? And so I think the bottom line is that J.D. Salinger was potentially a counterintelligence. He was a counterintelligence operative, but it very much seems as if this was a contrived narrative, a plot created by an amalgam of spooks who clearly had some sort of intention, some dark evil intention revolving around this sort of mind control manual, which it very much seems like it's having a subconscious effect. So I don't think, I think it goes without saying that this book should probably not be in the schools with a priority of exposing the narrative to adolescent children. So anyway, beyond that, guys, I appreciate you as always. I know, hey man, thank you, Hip Hop Head. I know we didn't quite get into the chat as we usually do on the morning streams, but you know how it is when you're interviewing someone, it's a little bit different. So, but yeah, can't thank William enough for coming back on the show. Yeah, with 1984 and Animal Farm, absolutely. Next time I do a Mockingbird episode with William, we'll legitimately get into the Hollywood connection there, the CIA liaison office being set up in 96 by Tommy Lee Jones' cousin. So strange, who was a CIA operative. It's just ridiculous, man. But there's far more connections you can trace up to modern day. Mockingbird is very much still an active operation, controlling and manipulating the public perception. So, all right, guys, I appreciate you as always. Again, this was my first attempt at kind of a solo interview process with the Underclass. I kind of think that anytime the opportunity presents itself, I'll probably jump on it, because I need to improve in regard to my as far as my skill set. I feel like this is definitely something that would be valuable to consistently attempt to try and anytime an interview scenario like this comes up, I think it would be something worthwhile. But anyway, let me know what you guys thought of this, and again, thank you so much. If you want to and you have the means to support me, my Patreon at the Underclass Podcast, definitely the best way to do so. And with doing that, you'll gain access, even with the $3 tier. you can gain access to the paywalled premium content exclusive to supporting members only, which is we just put out the 4th episode of whatever this is with Brad Binkley and Sam Tripoli and myself, and it was a good conversation. I think you guys would enjoy that as well. So anyway, thanks again, you guys at the Underclass Podcast. Appreciate you as always, and I hope you guys have a great Monday.